new babe. So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L, and I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel, man. Salute. We made it, y'all. We made it to the end of the week. We made it. Ladies, hey, you made it. Go get you a glass of wine, kick your shoes off, and let your hair down. Fellas, we made it. Grab you a beer, a drink, whatever it is you like, kick back, relax, and just chill. You made it to Friday, man. And we're going to get into these 5 unsolved murder mysteries. Now, before we get into the video, man, I got to tell y'all about the scare I had this morning, bro. My grandmother, bless her heart. That's what you got to say. That's how you got to start the conversation off. Bless her heart. Just bless her little heart. Bless her heart. She's 85 years old, right? So I'm doing something this morning, and I look down and I got a missed call from her. Now, this is early in the morning, right? She never calls me this early, right? Never. If we speak, it's literally, it may be midday or late in the day when we speak, right? So I got a missed call from her this morning at like the crack of dawn. So you know me, immediately I go to panicking. My heart drops. Well, something's wrong. So I'm fumbling trying to get the phone and get her back on the line. So she answered the phone, and I'm like, hey, you okay? Anything wrong? What's going on? You all right? She said, yeah. No, she said, what did she say? I said, you all right? Anything wrong? She said, huh? I said, you just called me. I had a missed call from you. You good? She said, oh, I didn't mean to call you. I'm sorry. I said, say what, lady? Huh? So me and my grandma, we have one of the best relationships. So we cut up. Me and her, we cut up. You know what I'm saying? So she said, oh, my bad. She was trying to call her son and wake him up for work. So she's like, my bad. I meant to call Jamie. I was supposed to wake him up for work. I said, are you serious, lady? You just scared the ever-loving bejesus. You cannot do that to me. You know what I mean? I'm like, you cannot. I said, you know what? You go to your room. I said, you know how you used to tell me, a little kid, go to my room? When I stay with you, go to your room. Go to your room and get your life together. Don't call me back until you got your life together. Don't call me back until you got your life together, bro. Like, she died laughing on the phone. She really thought this was funny. I said, I ain't playing with you, lady. You don't want none of this. Grandma, you don't want this. You know what I mean? She said, don't make me slap your face. I said, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Shut up real quick. But yeah, man, she threw me off this morning, messed me all the way up, bro. For real. You know what I mean? I said, you cannot do that to me, man. Don't scare me like that. You know what I mean? It's like she's like pretty much all I got, bro. Like, don't scare me like that. So, but yeah, man. Let's get to this video, and how we gonna forget the haters, y'all? TMG fam, assemble. How we gonna forget the haters? You know what time it is, baby. Everybody, run the likes up. Let's go.
Five unsolved murder mysteries. Death comes to us all, but sometimes there are people taken prematurely at the hands of another. The next 5 cases echo just that, and the people involved died under very strange circumstances. These are 5 unsolved murder mysteries. Number 5, Atlas Vampire. Known as one of Sweden's most well-chronicled murder mysteries, the Atlas Vampire has baffled people for many years. Atlas is a small neighborhood in Sweden. Back in the 1930s, it was dotted with various apartment complexes that had small rooms. In one of the apartments lived a 32-year-old sex worker named Lily Lindstrom. She was known as the call girl by her neighbors, not because of her profession, but simply because she was the only one who had a phone line. See, Minnie was in the same profession and lived directly below her, so the two became friends. Several days later, though, Minnie began to grow worried when she hadn't seen her coworker in a while. Concerned, she called authorities and asked them to do a welfare check, and when they did, what they found shocked them. When police entered the apartment, they found Lily lying face down on the bed, completely naked with her clothes neatly placed on a chair by her side. She had died from receiving multiple blows to the head with some sort of blunt object, and appeared she was killed 2 to 3 days prior. A used condom was found on her backside, and the most unnerving discovery of all was that while the room was relatively clean, nearly all of Lily's blood had been drained from her body.
What the?
They couldn't find an obvious explanation for this. One clue did lead to a chilling conclusion, though, as police found a blood-soaked ladle in the room. They then realized it was likely the killer had used the spoon to drink her blood. Police rounded up Lily's usual clients, but no one was named as a suspect. Moreover, no one had seen her last client come and go in the days right around her death. Despite the countless DNA evidence left in the room during the time, there was no way to test that out. Since this was the only murder in the area around that time, it doesn't appear to be the work of a serial killer. The methodical and sadistic nature would also make it seem like it wasn't a crime of passion. All this makes the murder all that more intriguing, because you would have to wonder who would do such a brutal thing. Today, the case is still technically open, and the Swedish Police Museum have placed some evidence of the case on display for anyone interested in reviewing the case themselves.
How do you even begin? Like, other than her typical normal clients, like, she could have met with anybody that day, bro. Like, in that type of profession. And then that's the scary thing about women in that type of profession, because you don't really know. You're dealing with new people all the time, so you don't know them. And then you're up in a hotel with them by yourself, or alley, or car, or wherever it is you do your professional business at. I ain't no judgment. You know what I mean? But you're dealing with people that you don't know, bro. And for somebody to come through, and I mean, they have you at their leisure, like, pretty much, man, because they could just book you. They know you want the money. So I feel like those women are easy targets, bro. They could just call up and just book you. They know you're going to take the money, and they can do whatever they want. That's why you see, like, on a lot of movies, like, what was that movie? Show I used to watch back in the day. Y'all remember Californication? Oh, that was the show right there. But when he was messing with, I think, the girl Trixie on there, she always had a bodyguard for situations like that. You know what I'm saying? That's what they needed back then, but they probably weren't thinking like that. I gave y'all a throwback with that Californication, right? That was the show, fam. Always into something.
Number 4, the Frankfurt Slasher. From 1985 to 1990, Frankfurt, Philadelphia was haunted by a serial killer. Dubbed the Frankfurt Slasher, this murderer would go on to kill and sexually assault 8 women during his 5-year crime spree. Helen Patton was a 55-year-old who lived in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and she was the first victim whose body was discovered on August 19, 1985. She had been dead for a week and was naked from the waist down with her shirt pulled up above her chest. It was clear she had been sexually assaulted prior to being stabbed 47 times. Police didn't have any leads, but then after 5 months, the killer struck again. On January 3, 1986, 68-year-old Anna Carroll was found dead inside her own home. She was also discovered naked from the waist down with a kitchen knife still stuck in her torso. The killer went quiet for almost an entire year, but then on Christmas Day of 1986, they killed 64-year-old Susan Olsef inside her home. The one thing that connected them all was that these women were known regulars at a place called the Golden Bar. The following year, but just weeks after Suzanne's body was found, Jean Durkin, who was 28, was found dead very close to Goldie's Bar. Jean was a stripper, but was homeless and often slept on a street close to the bar. She was found murdered, sexually assaulted, and stabbed 74 times. Her body was then left under a lorry with an overcoat covering her. By November 11th, 1988,
How do you even have the stomach to stab somebody 74 times, bro? Like, by the time you get to, like, for me, it would, no, I'm not even going to put myself in that. Then y'all be looking at me crazy like, yo, L really thinks about that. No. Just say, but just imagine somebody. 4, 5, like, fam. And you made it to set, like, come on, man. That just automatically lets me know right there you're off. You're way, there's something seriously wrong with you, bro. 74 times?
another
He was trying to make a pin cushion out of somebody.
woman, Margaret Vaughn, who was 66, was found stabbed in an apartment building on Penn Street, and she's believed to be another victim of the slasher. The community was shaken to its core and on high alert, but the killer didn't show any signs of stopping. Teresa Sciortini, who was 30, was found completely butchered inside her home on January 19, 1989. Eyewitnesses said both Vaughn and Sciortino were seen with a middle-aged white man before they were killed, and although a composite sketch was created, no arrests were ever made. Another murder attributed to the Frankfurt Slasher was that of 46-year-old Carol Down. She had a history of mental problems and was found stabbed more than 12 times, with her left nipple having been removed as well. Her body was left behind Newman.
Really? Well, you had to take a nipple off? Like, fam, like, you're proving our case that there's something seriously wrong with you, bro. You had to take her nipple off, though? For what? Like, what use did you have for it that she didn't? I think she really needed it.
And seafood, so the following day, police questioned Leonard Christopher, an employee at the store. Other prostitutes had told police they had saw Leonard near the crime scene with a large utility knife on his belt the evening of the crime. Soon after that, he was arrested, despite the fact that prior witnesses described the slasher as a white man and Christopher was black. There was little evidence against him aside from the eyewitness testimony, but nevertheless, he was convicted for the murder of Carol and sentenced to life in prison.
Oh.
So with Christopher in jail, many thought that the Frankfurt Slasher was gone for good. But another crime would happen that bore the marks of this sadistic serial killer. On September 6, 1990, Michelle Denner was found murdered inside her apartment.
All right, is that still Elsa? Like, it is coming down out there right now, bro. Like, look at her. As soon as it start coming down, what happens? My son start calling me. He up there nervous. It's lightning and thundering, bro. It's going crazy up there. And he just calling me like, he goes, like, Dad, you hear that? You hear that?
No signs of forced entry were seen, just like the other victims. And Michelle had been stabbed 23 times in the chest and stomach. She was a unique case because she was acquainted with one of the previous victims, Jean Durkin. And
they should just look for the dude with the bulging forearms. Because I'm pretty sure doing this made your forearms like massive, fam. Like super massive, bro. Look for the dude with the bulging forearms. Gotta be him.
in fact, the night before Durkin was discovered dead, Michelle was seen arguing with her over a blanket. This actually led police to initially consider Michelle as a suspect, but soon dropped it, seeing that there was no evidence to convict her. Investigators believe that since the two frequented the same bar and area, they both may have come across the slasher and somehow became victims of his vicious killing spree. Who the killer was or is, however, still remains a mystery. Number 3, Ricky McCormick. When police found Ricky McCormick's body, it was so badly decomposed that his fingers had fallen off. Despite being missing for only 3 days, his body was in such bad condition that it was tough for police to even find out who the man was. He was found wearing blue jeans and a white shirt. His lifeless body had been left at a notorious dumping ground in the rural cornfields of St. Charles County, just 20 minutes from downtown St. Louis. After conducting an autopsy, the coroner ruled his death undetermined with suspicion of foul play, There were no stab or bullet wounds to indicate he had died that way, and even if there was a possible head wound, it was hard to determine because of the advanced decomposition. Despite the ruling of suspicious death, however, there was very little to go on. With no clues on his body, they collected information and leads from Ricky's family, friends, and girlfriends. Ricky was a high school dropout who had lived in the Illinois and Missouri area, bouncing around from one address to another most of his life. He would often mooch off his mother, and it was obvious their relationship was strained since his mother labeled him retarded, citing he likely suffered from some form of mental illness that went undiagnosed. He wasn't married either, but had fathered 4 children, the first 2 with a then 11-year-old girl nicknamed Pretty Baby. For that, he served 13 months out of a 3-year prison sentence for statutory rape.
Sheesh.
At the time of his death, he was 40.
It's getting crazy.
1 years old and suspected to be involved with drug activity. Despite finding out more about his life, police were stumped and no leads panned out. From the public eye, Ricky's case went cold and nothing came out of the investigation. It wasn't until 12 years later when his case would capture the public's attention once again. When investigators couldn't find anything else to go on, they turned to the one thing Ricky left behind upon his death: his jeans and shirt. Detectives found 2 crumpled pieces of paper in his jeans pockets with random scribbles of letters and numbers. They turned this over to the FBI. However, after holding on to the cryptic papers and its contents for 12 years, they couldn't figure out what the coded message was, so they turned to the public for help. The crumpled papers contained an unknown code consisting of letters and numbers, some of them occasionally enclosed in parentheses. Internet sleuths and amateur code breakers tried their hand at cracking this code, but to no avail. Without results, most people insinuated the code was unbreakable because it wasn't a code in the first place. After all, Ricky was barely literate and probably suffered from mental problems. However, the FBI seems to think otherwise. They point to the series of repeating letters citing there is something there, but it's most likely a personal message and not something meant for public consumption. Perhaps it's some sort of drug dealer-related code for pickup and drop-offs. Or it could be something relating to his death. Regardless, today the code remains unbroken. It has become among the top 3 coded messages that have stumped the FBI, including one letter from the infamous Zodiac Killer in 1969, and an anonymous secret letter written to an unstated public agency. Number 2. The Dupont de Legends family. In the spring of 2011, after several days had passed, neighbors of the Dupont de Legends family began to notice that the house seemed unusually quiet. They were a household of 6, and Xavier was the head of the family. He was born in France in 1961 and had a privileged upbringing in a strict Catholic household. He was described as courteous and discreet by neighbors and those who knew him. While it's unclear what type of employment he was actually in, it's thought he worked as an advertising salesman and also ran some companies with limited success. His wife Agnes, also a devout Catholic, taught catechism and regularly attended Mass with their children. Their oldest son Arthur was 20 years old and worked as a waiter while studying IT. Their 3 other children were 18-year-old Thomas, who was a gifted musician, 16-year-old Anne, and 13-year-old Benoit, who were both still in school. After concerned neighbors and friends phoned police about failing to make any contact with any members of the family, investigators headed out to the property. There, they discovered that the 2 family Labrador retrievers had recently been killed and buried, each one having received a gunshot wound to the head. After that, some more digging was done, and under the patio is where they found several human remains. Every single family member had been killed and buried in a shallow grave, except for Xavier, who was missing and unaccounted for. During the autopsy, it was discovered the victims were drugged prior to being shot to death with a .22 caliber pistol that Xavier had inherited from his father. Looking back, prior to the discovery of the bodies, the family performed a number of suspicious actions. This included terminating the lease on their home, closing all bank accounts, settling the children's school payments, tacking a return all mail to sender note on the mailbox, and the home being completely emptied. Aside from the school officials receiving abrupt notice, Agnes's employer was also informed she had gastroenteritis, and the family was moving to Australia. 2 of the 3 cars the family owned were also missing from the property. One was later found abandoned at a hotel, which police believe Xavier had used and abandoned. The other one, a Pontiac, has never been found. Days prior to their deaths, the family had been seen several times, and their individual friends and acquaintances didn't notice anything unusual. However, Xavier's actions were deemed more suspicious by authorities. He was seen buying 4 bags of lime from a host of different...
He did it. That's all I needed to hear. Bags of lime? What he trying to do? Hide the smell. That's right. He did that.
...different shops around town. His subsequent disappearance only made him more suspicious, and as of the moment, an international warrant of arrest is out for him as both a primary witness and suspect. Hundreds of tips and false leads have been received by police as to his whereabouts, but none have panned out. In July of 2015, a French journalist received a photograph of 2 of the Dupont de Ligonn's children, Arthur and Benoit. On the back of the picture was a handwritten note saying, "I'm still alive." It's unknown who sent the image and where it was taken. The following year, a CCTV image of a man who looked very much like Xavier was spotted in a casino. His sister still believes that the family never actually died. The autopsy was rushed and the bodies were cremated just days afterwards. Family members were also encouraged not to view the bodies, and so she says that the family had indeed gone into hiding, and that their deaths, including the bodies recovered in the home, if indeed there were any, were not of the family at all.
Now, I ain't gonna rule that out, because what was crazy about it was they were buried like under the, I forgot what he said it was, out, I think it was out front of the house or back of the house, either way, but nobody saw it. You know what I mean? None of the neighbors saw somebody digging a hole or something like that, or him just, the fact that nobody saw it just blows my mind. Like somebody out digging a grave, putting, what was it, 2 kids? How many was it? Let me see if I can go back to the picture of the family. Yeah, 2 kids and a wife. Somebody had to see something. Just 3 bodies out there. Yeah, but that's true too. They could have went into hiding. So they need to check the past to see what's going on. And it is going crazy outside my house, bro. Prayers up to the people in the Bronx too, man. Y'all seen all that flooding going on in the Bronx? Sound like it's flooding outside here right now. But anyway, back to the story.
Currently, this case remains open. Number 1, Keith Warren. It was already dusk, 6 hours after authorities found Keith Warren's body hanging from a tree in the back of a townhouse, when his mother and family were informed of his death. The police had deemed it a suicide by hanging. No autopsy was done, and his body was quickly brought to a funeral home for embalming. For Keith's relatives, there was nothing but shock and grief. The 19-year-old was a promising student and by all accounts had a bright future ahead of him. He had just been accepted to North Carolina Central University and was to start during the fall, but instead, his body was found in July of 1986. His mother, Mary, initially accepted the verdict, but soon afterwards, there were just too many things that didn't add up to support the claim. For one, a friend of Keith's named Rodney Kendall told her that suspicious individuals had approached him looking for Keith prior to his death. These were a group of black males that he didn't know and believed Keith didn't know either. In another instance, Rodney ran into Mark Finley, Keith's high school friend, and he relates that Finley seemed to be urgently looking for Keith. Several weeks after the boy's death, Mary decided to ask Rodney to lead her to where they found Keith's body. To her surprise, the tree where he was found was cut down. She later found out that it was the police that took it down and brought it in as evidence, despite the fact that they listed the cause of death to be a suicide. Realizing that something was amiss, she launched a letter-writing campaign seeking help from state and federal officials, but to no avail. It wasn't until April of 1992, on what would be Keith's 25th birthday, when she went out to the porch and found a plain manila envelope sitting there. Inside were 5 photographs of Keith's body hanging from the tree. She forced herself to look them over and noticed that he was wearing clothes far too big for him, and most telling, he was wearing white sneakers. The clothing returned to her were Keith's jacket and brown boots, which police said were found close to his body, although they weren't shown in the photos. Now, completely untrusting of the police, Mary hired a private investigator who discovered the pictures were indeed copies of official crime scene photos taken by the police, but they had no idea who sent them to Mary. The PI also noted that Keith's shirt had leaves stuck to it, suggesting he was lying down on the ground before being hoisted up. Obviously not something one could do if they were committing suicide. This also backed up the complicated path the rope had taken, because the tree from where his body was found was small and not enough to hold his weight, so the rope's end was actually tied to a much larger tree. Keith's body was then exhumed at the insistence of the family. They hired a private path.
Which they should have waited before they did something to the body anyway. What happened to the autopsy though? Like, what's up with people just rushing to just cremate the body or do whatever, embalm it? Like, what happened to an autopsy?
Pathologist to examine it and discovered that his body contained lethal amounts of toxic chemicals, often found in solvents and glue. According to the pathologist, these levels inside his body would have rendered him dead, thus having the possibility of suicide completely ruled out. Regardless of the findings, there are still no concrete answers as to who or why Keith Warren was killed. The one person who possibly knew something, Keith's friend Mark, would soon take that secret to his grave. When Mary received the photographs, there was a little note inside that said, "Don't worry, Mark Finley will be next." 2 months later, Mark called Mary and said he missed Keith and that he would drop by because he needed to unload. But unfortunately, soon after, he died. Mark had struck a curb and was thrown from his bike. And while this could possibly be an accident, it still doesn't explain why.
Struck a curve thrown from his bike and that killed him? Like, I've hit many a curves in my life. I mean, at one point in time when I was a kid, I didn't think I'd ever figure out if I was going to learn how to ride the bike right. So I was always falling and scraping a knee or arm up and hitting curbs or holes in the street and falling off. Never died, though. That don't seem odd to y'all? I'm just saying.
Anyone would threaten him, and so we don't know what kind of information he had about Keith's death. The case itself is officially closed, but still, nagging questions continue to haunt the family and those who know of the case. So there were 5
Too much stuff left out. Evidence really not adding up. The thing they found out about him being on the ground first, then hung, then the way the position the rope was, felt like the cops might have been, you know what I mean, either careless, reckless, or involved. One of the three. This is crazy, man. Prayers to his mom, still fighting and trying to figure out stuff. That's insane. That's insane. Just like the dude with the bulging forearms they need to find from stabbing somebody 70-something times, bro. And I think a lot of these cases could have possibly been solved had they not have just discarded the body as soon as they came in. Okay, let's cremate it. Oh, let's go ahead and embalm it. Let's get him into the ground. Like, what's the rush? It often makes you think, is it big business in funerals and burials? What's the rush? Especially with an open case. I don't know. Stuff I think about, bro. I'm letting y'all into my psychotic mind. Y'all get at me in the comment section, though. Let me know what y'all thought of this, man. And I'm finna go shut things down, man. Sound like the sky just opened up. I don't know what's going on outside, but Mother Nature ain't playing, man. I don't feel like dealing with her, so I'm finna chill. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Y'all stay safe. and dry. Till the next reaction, I'm out. Peace, y'all. Stay solid. Hey.